I think Chintan has given my introduction already. So my plan today is to cover primarily around IoT solution and the monetization that can be done based on the IoT solutions that have been talked about. So as you see that, I mean, in industry today, right, there is a lot of craze between IoT stuff which has come up now, IoT and IoE, right? So this is not something not new, because if you recall, even in 2G, 3G days as well, right? So I'm not trying to correlate that with the mobile technology, but I'm just trying to give you a reference. So if you look at the initial days where people used to talk about metering, water metering, or like say electricity metering, right? And there were certain other side of the industries which were all getting connected for Internet of Things, but they never came up as a visibility. But of course, in last few years, this has become into a core industry now. So if you look at from a primarily the Internet of Things, or the IoE Internet of everything. So primarily this gets into different use cases, because it is quite important to understand when we talk about IoT, what is that we are referring to, what industry that is covering to, right? So there are various verticals, and what I have tried doing is that trying to give you an overview about different verticals and what are the different solutions and what are the primary use cases that what the industry is focusing right today. Okay, do let me know in case if I'm going a bit faster, or if you want me to, if you have any question, do let me know. I would like to keep this interactive as much as possible. Okay. So to start with, on the left-hand side, if you look at, right, so we have in verticals which we have I have categorized into 5 different verticals. One is manufacturing. We will second is transportation. Third is energy. Fourth is government. The fifth one is service provider, M2M, and the next one is, now we are getting into even sports and entertainment as well. So from a manufacturing perspective, right, so you have two types of manufacturing which is there today. So one is a manufacturing which is like open mines, or open, you can say basically mining industry. And the other one is where you do a manufacturing which is a factory. So now that factory could be a manufacturing of a particular good, or it could be like a processing plant. So it could be anything as such. So if I look at manufacturing primarily, right, so what we are looking at is a basically factory network where basically the automation is taking place. So I happened to visit recently. I'm not very sure how many of you guys have interacted with Tanishq, like which is into jewelry. So if you look at their plant as well, right, so they are also into robotics. So they also use robotics for a use case in their factory. So like that, we have multiple factories which have started getting into automation, so that all those repeated works can be taken care of. Now, when we talk about these factories, we are not only connecting each of those machineries to the central location, or we are not only monitoring the utilization of that, but we are also trying to see how the cost saving can be done. Because today is a cost competitive market. Any product you bring in, any service you bring in, the cost of that has to be really minimum because of the price competition that you have. So from that perspective, this has become very critical. Like the objective primarily here is to minimize the downtime of the plant or the machinery. And second thing is to use the capacity to the maximum that is possible on the installed capacity. That's one of the use cases which we have seen, and that's what we are working upon in various industries. Second thing is on the mining. Mining was one of the field which was really very open, right? It was to be all work in silos, like a team which is into geological is doing a survey differently. A team which is there in the field to do primarily the field activity like blast, or taking out those part of the ore, used to have a different behavior. But the management never used to have a real-time input as to what's going on in the field, right? So that's where the connected mine is one of the use cases which has came in, where each and every component which is being used today in the mines are getting connected, which gives you a real-time visibility as to what's the kind of load you are running today, what's the kind of efficiency that you have with all the equipment that are running. So let's take an example, like you have dumpers which are running, right? Now this dumper carries the ore from the field. It goes to a particular plant where the ores are normally crushed. So if any of this component break in any of the stage, right, that is going to lead to a loss, because ultimately any mining technology guy has to do export of whatever the core or whatever the ores that it is extracting out of the mines. So that's where is one of these use cases which we have. Then guys, let me know if you think this is going a bit high overview. If you're expecting some more technical, we can do a deep dive on this, but I'm just trying to give you an overview on this part at this point of time.
Yeah, Dwarika.
Okay. Now, from a transportation perspective, so this has been all a long thing. So what I will do is that I'll go through in the next couple of slides in detail about it. So in case of a connected rail or fleet, so fleet management is already well known to most of the people, where we connecting the transport vehicles. Now we are also talking about connectivity in case of rails are concerned, because like the train what you see here in India, right? I mean, they are not really so connected, but this government has started working on it. But there are a lot of use cases with respect to the safety. They are related to primarily the overall performance of the fleet that is being taken care of. When I'm talking about fleet, primarily around the road railways. Then there is also a connectivity which is happening, so that all your track work or whatever stations the train is supposed to travel through, they are also actually put into synchronization, so that, I mean, if there are any issues which are popping up at any point of time, that can be taken care of. Energy is primarily into distribution automation and advanced metering. So this is on for quite some time. Then we have connected oil fields now. So these are like basically remote operations, because if you look at the oil fields, they are various rigs which are there in deep sea. And if there are any issues which comes up, and if there are some pre-alerts which are getting generated, you need to align a lot of resources so that you have the right support available, so that your production does not get hampered. So those kind of remote management is being done through the IoT solutions. And also security of the facility operations. So primarily the vigilance part of it, or the execution of that particular security, is now being taken care through different facilities. Now coming down to the government part of it. So as we all know today, we all are talking about smart city as one of the projects. So even in case of smart city, there are multiple use cases which are there, but I'm just trying to capture here few of them, as the list is very long, but this is quite a complex thing. It is not just, if you look at a smart city project, right, it is not just limited only to providing a smart connectivity or an application, but there are some regulations, there will be some changes in law as well, which also have to be taken care of. So focusing around the smart city project, so we are talking about smart parking as one of the use case. Then we are talking about city Wi-Fi safety, where we are connecting all those cameras across. Then we are also talking about the garbage management, city road management, toll management, all this through the IoT space. Then the other project is about connected defense. Of course, I mean, connected defense is also a big topic here as such. So if you look at primarily the relevance of it, and in India, right? So we have different paramilitary forces along with our defense personnel who are deployed in various harsh environment, where at certain period of the year, it becomes very difficult for them, for a human person, to monitor it, right? So all those places are which can be connected across. So when I say connectivity, again, it is not just limited to cameras, but we are talking about connecting different sensors, then different kind of sensors, and then different kind of equipment across in different locations, which can provide it. The next thing is around service provider. We are talking about remote SP operations, primarily around managing the kiosks which are there at different outlets. Then we are talking about managing the generators, managing the cell sites. And the next one, which is emerging now, is the sports and entertainment. So as you might have seen in the cricket stadium, or like in case of the soccer matches which happens, right? So that's a place which is emerging now, where people are talking about connecting different level of equipment across to give a better judgment. So the top killer 5 apps which we see today, where the monetization is happening today, is around, first is around manufacturing, right? And that too in what we say, the automotive industry, the machine builders, and then the food and beverages. So these are primarily the industries where this is getting utilized in a very high way. We have the other thing, which is transportation, primarily around trains, as I said, smart city, utilities, and then the oil and gas. So if you look at the market statistics, right? So now this is around the primarily around the connected factories which we are talking about. So what based on the Deloitte report, right? I mean, what they are saying is there is 73% of higher profitability with efficient global supply chain. So primarily now with all this connected stuff, they are able to see what kind of utilization it is. They are able to see what is the lifespan of the product that has been installed, which is doing the production. They know by when this is required to be replaced. Then they are able to track the primarily the spare management part of it, so that, I mean, they are able to take care of this. So basically, even though you have distributed across different locations, now you are able to manage it efficiently. Now the velocity, if you look at, right, what we are talking about is the revenue from all this for a customer, or from this whole IoT industry in the connected space, is around $400 billion. So that's the kind of talking about. Downtime. So basically there is again a saving. You find the slides are not getting updated because I guess the internet may be slow. So let me know wherever. I have not changed my slide. I'm still on the same slide.
Yeah.
And the other? Yeah, Chintan.
Yeah, that's supply chain.
Yeah.
And this is something, I mean, let's say these connected devices are also part of the industrial revolution 4.0, as connected internet of things, right?
Correct.
Industrial
Correct.
IoT.
Yes, exactly. And what has happened is today, if you look at, right, the industry, especially even in the connected, or let's take on the overall IoT space, right? What has happened? You have different level of sensors which are available today, but the major gap is between the sensor and the connectivity module. So this means that, now let's say that if you have a sensor within a factory, now that might be trying to sense the oil level or maybe some other information, right? But that information has to be passed across to a central management or the central server, right? Now that communication modules are not available for most of those sensors. So that is one of the biggest challenge this industry is facing today, and the entire industry is focusing around to fix the connectivity issue right from the sensor up to the application.
Yeah, so let's hope that industrial IoT brings back the manufacturing sector in respective countries from
Yeah.
China.
Like, let's see what happens. I mean, of course, I mean, everybody is trying to now focus, or they're trying to diversify. Let's see what it happens. But unfortunate
Ye-
part is that the most of the developments are happening in China only. I mean, if you look at.
Right.
Right. So there are various automation firms which are working on it. As I said, so like Rockwell Automation is one which is into a big time into robotics and primarily into automotive scale, where the cars manufacturing, or let's say take any automotive vehicles, right? They are all getting now manufactured by robotic means. That doesn't mean that there is going to be a direct hit on the manpower, but the manpower can be trained enough to handle it differently. So what are the things that we normally achieve when we talk about in the connected factory? One is that you can do a predictive maintenance. You can do basically an automated factory configuration. You can do a secure plant, and then you can have remote expert scheduling. So that is another thing. So today what happens is, if any component goes, if it fails down, then normally you need to fly down that particular engineer right up to the site so that he can look at the problem and then he can do a troubleshooting. But once you have this IoT part, which most of them are working upon, right? Now the functionality or the behavior of that particular equipment, it can be monitored at the central location, which means that now a remote engineer can do a troubleshooting part sitting at a remote end, which is actually bringing down the convergence time of traveling or to fix up that particular problem. So that's the kind of insight what we are talking about to be covered from the IoT perspective. So where's the value? The value is, again, as I said, near to zero downtime, rapid fault isolation, like new product introduction, risk mitigation, and then labor optimization. So this is what we are trying to achieve when we are talking about in case of the IoT space. Now, similarly, if you look at on the transport, so now this the entire statistics what you look right now is on the transport industry. So what we are referring to is around like about $437 million of fuel cost that can be saved by using IoT in this public transportation system. Now, these figures may differ from a country to country or from an operator to operator. It totally depends as to the scale of network that particular operator is having. Then it also increases your ridership. So today, if you look at, right, in case of in India itself, right, the public transport condition is pathetic. So it's not just pathetic here, it is same across in any other place. What is the major problem that you have? Why there is no such a high ridership? That problem is you don't have the prediction as to where that vehicle is and at what time that it will turn up, so that you can take that vehicle to your next destination. So when you have all this connected, right, it gives you the visibility, and then that also gives a comfort to the people that yes, this is a reliable mode of transport, and now I can do this. I'm sure you guys might have heard about something about sharing that is coming up, right? Like what you see on Ola Share, or like in case of the Uber Share, right?
Yeah,
So
the ride
similarly,
share.
people are coming up with different apps, and that gives a visibility. So that is not going to get limited only to just Ola or Uber, but a common platform where people can share their rides from one place to another place, bringing down the traffic. And then you also have the predictability as to at what time people are living and whether it matches with your time or not, right? So this is one of the critical achievement that is expected when we have this part of it. And in case of connected transportation, right? So if you look at the scale at which the works are on, so this particular slide, I have put a reference of Bombardier. Bombardier is the coach as well as a train manufacturer in Europe. All right. So primarily, if you look at the kind of sensors that these guys have devised now, and that is incredible. So basically, the entire sensors are all around security, safety, then ensuring that the functionality in a coach, the temperatures are getting measured, so that you don't have higher air conditioning that is getting pushed off. The air conditioning is getting managed that way, and then on top of it, basically different levels of information. If there is any kind of a breakdown or something, it's all are getting monitored at the central itself. So that's one of the industry. What is the value now? Yeah. So one is important is that passenger safety, and if you look at the increased ridership, is what is the first mandate for any government you take it, whether you take it in India or any other country. Safety and regulation is the other one. New revenue streams. So now when we talk about new revenue streams, so what are the revenue streams in case of a transportation? Ad industry is a big one, right? So you have different levels of ad that can be played across. So people are no more talking about an ad advertisement, which is poster based, which is normally sticked on the body of the train, right? Rather than that, they are talking about smart displays that can be remotely monitored or remotely updated. Okay, and now they are making it quite interactive as well, because just seeing the ad doesn't mean that it will going to get you a conversion. So people are working on displays which can be interactive, so where you can touch, you can show your interest, and then you can put your contact number, and then that makes an interaction saying that this person is interested. So that's a kind of a different level of analytics and revenue generation that is being talked about. Next thing is biggest one, which is the customer satisfaction. So now, they are putting different levels of customer feedback mechanism, so that there are no manipulations when the feedback comes back to the management, right? So there are different level of open customer feedbacks interfaces which have been opened, and the objective now is to retain the customer. That's the primary objective. Okay. This is about around basically the greenhouses, the primarily around the pollution level. So it's primarily around the parking space part of it, right? So what the survey project says, like basically there is 80% of the greenhouse gases are generated by cities worldwide. Now this can be brought down. So today, the major challenge is around traffic hurdles, right? So you have different traffic blockages across different part of the city. Now, ultimately, what happens is today the vehicles, they are normally always on because of the heat, because of the air condition which is there, right? And that is all increasing already the greenhouse emissions. The next problem is all around parking. So you may have reached a destination, but probably you may go around a particular building on that particular area to look for a parking, because there is no parking information which is available. So that's another place where primarily you are actually creating a lot of pollution as well, right? Because of the gases. And these all are also translating on the other angle is more on the fuel, the kind of fuel that you are burning, which is getting wasted. So next generations to generation which are going to come, I'm sure they are going to have a tough time. That's where this entire industry is also working towards doing smart parking. Of course, this is a big, the word may sound very small, but there are a lot of complexities involved, which requires a complete partnership between the government, the private organizations, the public, different part of it, and how this can be optimized. Then we are also talking about providing Wi-Fi connectivity. So as you might have seen now, today when we are on the traffic jam, right, you will see that your data services have stopped working, right? So since you have stopped in for a longer time, so what you will do is that it's a tendency that people go back onto the phone, and you will see that literally nothing is moving out, because of the kind of congestion that has got in that particular area. The cell site may not be sufficient enough to cater to that kind of traffic. That is where we are talking about having Wi-Fi on the poles. Of course, there is a safety concern here. It is not expected that while driving you are supposed to get connected, but I mean, looking at the demand, looking at the situation, that's where the Wi-Fi availability has become important here. And now this Wi-Fi availability is not just going to be limited only for just Wi-Fi vanilla connectivity, but it is also going to act as a medium of connectivity to different sensors. Okay, coming down to the smart city, or what we call it as the connected city. So various use cases which we are talking about, as I spoke in the last slide about, was about on the smart parking. We are also talking about intelligent lighting system. Now this intelligent lighting system, right, it is not important that it is only deployed in the streets or on the roads. This also can act in your society as well, because this requires a LED lighting, and then some sensors which can sense the presence of someone, right? So whenever there is no presence, then the light can be dimmed across, so that you don't utilize more electricity. But the moment it senses that somebody is approaching, the light intensity goes to the maximum brightness, so that it is clearly visible. So that's the intelligent lighting system, that what we are talking about. Video safety and traffic flow, of course, I mean, this is part of a security aspect. Connected bus stations, waste collection optimization is the other activity which is a critical activity. So today, in the what we say, the collection, the wastage collection vans, right? They go around the places, irrespective whether they have sufficient amount of garbage or not, right? Or let's say that if the garbage truck has moved out after collecting the garbage, and then suddenly because of some reason that particular area the garbage bin has gone full, so everybody in that area or locality have to wait for the next truck to come in, which is going to be the next day. But with this integrated or connected wastage management system, what we're talking about, whenever there is a garbage which is filled to the capacity, then there will be a van available so that can get collected, and that takes care of your cleanliness around that area. So again, here if you look at new revenue streams which are coming up, then 30% lower OPEX, planning efficiency are the various value that is going to get generated out of this connected city. Guys, any questions so far?
Yeah, I have one question about the various types of, I mean, I would say density of these devices. If you can say that, okay, fine, maybe within, I mean, if we go back and say that, okay, within a square kilometer of area, these many devices can be implemented, or what, do we have any kind of limitations for implementing such devices?
Okay, so that's a really interesting question, Chintan, and I think that would be really very important for everybody to understand on this space. So there are two aspects of this devices. Okay, one is the devices which are on the sensor side. The other is the devices from the network perspective, right? Because let's say that you have multiple applications because of which you need to deploy different sensors, right? And that too located within an area. Now, how do I provide a connectivity to that sensor so that that information can be collected and processed? Correct? So there are two aspects. So as I said, end device or end sensor, and the other one is the network availability. So there are different technologies which have come in, right? So the traditional 3G, 4G is anyway there, and there are a lot of tweaking which has been done in order to meet this requirement. But in addition to that, there are other new technologies which have come up like LoRa, right? So this is basically a lower power but a long range kind of a radiation, right? So that with a few BTS sites you can actually cover up the entire city, right? So there is absolutely no limitation to it. The only critical thing what is more important today is availability of different types of sensors and different mechanisms of connectivity from these sensors. That's the only thing. If you have this in place and if you have the backend in place, there is absolutely everything available. So does it
Okay.
answer your question, Chintan?
Yeah. I mean, it answers my question actually. Thanks.
Hi, Dwarika. This is Jamshid.
Yeah,
I
hi,
have a
Jamshed.
question. Dwarika, you had mentioned about entertainment services on trains, correct? And all linked with IoT.
Correct.
Typically, the LoRa implementations are all low bandwidth, minimal bandwidth
Correct.
implementations.
Correct.
So when we are talking of such, what would say bandwidth intensive services like entertainment services, so how does IoT and what form of IoT plays a role over there?
So, Jamshed, you had a really valid point, and I was expecting somebody to bring up this particular question, right? So, if you look at LoRa, right, LoRa is meant for basically a very small chunk of data, which may be in bytes, right? So, because if you have a sensor, it will just send an information like what value it has got, it will just transmit over it. So with LoRa, you will actually not get any kind of a high data seeking or high speed requirement. For doing all those high speed connectivity kind of stuff, right? So what you need is either a high speed Wi-Fi connectivity within that particular train, what we are talking about, and that's one is the application that is going to provide you all this. Now the question which comes in is, how do we provide that Wi-Fi connectivity within a train at such a high speed, right? The major challenge here is all around primarily the backhaul. So there are different mixture of technologies that are normal today used in order to provide Wi-Fi. So in countries like Europe, or let's take our neighboring country like Singapore, right? So what they have done is they have ensured that there is 4G coverage all across the tracks on which this metro travels. Okay, and in each of these metros, there is a device which works as a bandwidth aggregator of different LTE operators, and that is providing a Wi-Fi into the coach. This is similar way how it has been done even if you look at Europe or in US as concerned. So that is one mode of it. The other mode which industry has been trying, and there are a couple of work which has happened, that is having Wi-Fi as a backhaul on the tracks, which means that you have a set of access point which will work only as a backhaul access point, and it will talk to the access point which is there on the train, which requires a high speed of handovers between these access points so that your internet connectivity or the connectivity is not dropped. Okay, so for different level of devices, you need different type of end connectivity so that it can give you that desired result. So does it answer your question, Jamshed?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Dwarika. This really helps.
No problem. Okay. Any other question, guys, or I'll move to the next slide. Okay. So, guys, today the other part of it is around the energy sector. Now, when we talk about energy, this is not just limited only to the grid, but it also It is also important that they are also we consider primarily the huge data center or the consumption, the end user consumer who is actually consuming that particular electricity, right? Because if you look at any of this application, it has got an end-to-end dependency. Now, in today's world where things are not connected, most of the things, like if you take the energy sector, right, it is not really connected end-to-end, so that the power the person who is sitting at the power manufacturing or power production and the person who is sitting at the grid has a visibility as to what kind of load that is required and at what particular point of time, right? So that's where the basically connected solution or IoT application is coming up, or people are already started implementing that in case of the energy sector. So the objective here is that to improve the reliability of the grids, right? So if I have a visibility that Mumbai can consume this much of power at this particular point of time, then I can probably use those extra power which is available here in Mumbai for some other place. Similarly, when the peak utilization goes up, I can really divert it so that none of these guys really gets down to a situation where you have a power breakage or a power shutdown, or you call it as like normally we call it as power failures, right? But it is actually a power management which the power distribution team is doing, right? So today, if you look at in Maharashtra as well, right, out of Mumbai, so Mumbai has a 24/7 power supply which is available. But when you move out of the boundaries of Mumbai city, right, you will see that in small locations there are some power outages that are happening, like either on Thursday or some particular week of the day for a particular period of time, right? So if that particular visibility is there, then I think these power cuts which are done normally, that also can be optimized. So that is not only just going to optimize the power large grid outages, it is also going to help the grid condition improvement, primarily because based on the health, load, and whatever kind of maintenance that is required to be done, and the response time would be much more faster. So now people will have a predictability, and then they can manage it, and the service experience would improve. So that's what you have in the energy sector. And Itron is one of the a vendor which is working in this particular space on the power distribution side. So as I talked about it, so the objective here in the from a power sector is around distribution automation, manage distributed generation, advanced metering infrastructure, telemetric applications, and connected EV charging. So now there are electronic vehicle charging stations also which are coming up, right? So I'm not very sure if you have observed. So when you are traveling in Mumbai from Ghatkopar towards your Thane, after you cross the Godrej signal, right, on the left hand side, you will see that there is a power distribution station which is there from Tata Communication. Sorry, Tata Power.
Tata
They
Power.
have Tata Power. So they have installed charging stations for vehicle. Okay, where
And
you can go if you have a hybrid car. If you want to charge your car, you can go take the car, connect it there, and you can charge free. So they are providing this services free of cost.
and also Tata Power is coming up with similar kind of stations across Delhi, and the number is something which is really surprising and encouraging. They are going to
Yes.
set up 1,000 such stations across Delhi.
Yes. And not only that, see, if you look at different enterprises or corporates, right? Now in the parking stations, in their parking or in the basement or wherever they have the parking reserved for that particular corporate, right? You really can put this basically connected EV charging station, so that whoever is using the electricity card, you can give them the location for charging it, and that is again connected. So what happens is you connected the car, you went for back to working, and once the charging is complete, the sensor will send you a SMS back saying that boss, your car has charged, please remove from the car parking, so the next guy can park it.
Yeah, I mean that is something interesting use case because we Indians have got a tendency to keep our mobile for charging for entire night.
Yeah. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, but generally the charging of vehicles take almost 7-8 hours, correct? So in any case, uh,
No, it depends. It depends. I have seen, so my personal experience. So since I work for Cisco Systems, right, in my US office, so we have stations where we park. The guys can park their car and they get quickly charged up. So basically, let's say that 2 hours, 2.5 hours, or 3 hours. It totally depends, of course, as to what is the charge which is there on the car, and based on that you are doing the charging, right? So it totally depends on that. So you're right. It may go up to 7 hours as well, but since you have some charge available, so it quickly charge the rest of the portion.
Yeah, so
yeah, that is correct.
it will be based on the type of power you are feeding actually.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely,
when in the residential area and you are using that 15 amp plug, it would definitely take more time. But when you are using those commercial charging stations, the expected time is less than 1 hour.
exactly.
Understood.
Yeah. So oil and gas energy is another thing where there are a lot of work happening in case of the IoT part of it. So if you look at a rig or any oil and gas sector, right? So you have two types of sectors there. One is the field exploration. The second is where this crude oil are processed in a very harsh environment, right? So there is a lot of safety risk for the workers who are working there, and then it is the worker who is going there gives you a the first level of insight as to what is the kind of environment which is there at that particular point of time. So what has happened now here is primarily there are a lot of sensors which have come in. So like you have a mobile communication. So there are really hazard proof, or there are basically there is very uh, a different kind of material which is being used to manufacture those mobile devices now, which has multiple sensors which can take care of your oxygen level, which takes care of it, which can detect different level of gases, it can detect your temperatures, right? And similarly on the body as well, right? With the suit which they wear and get inside those areas. So from the suit also there are a lot of sensors which are connected that gives a visibility of that particular environment. So if there is any kind of a untoward incident which is about to happen, now when I say that that prediction comes again because of the IoT, because you are able to sense, and then you are able to communicate that back to that particular individual who is there at that particular location. So that's the kind of safety part which is being taken care of with this particular IoT help. And as I said, the field part of it, which is the exploration part. So deep sea drilling is where primarily what happens is when there is a drilling happening, there are possibilities that that can cause the particular location where the drilling is happening has some kind of a different behavior than what was expected, right? So all that can be tracked, and then sufficient efforts can be taken to really rectify that. So Slumberger is one of them who is actually which is working in this particular space, right? So it does pipeline monitoring. You can do fog analysis. You can do rig communication. Then you can do distribution optimization. So all that is possible today. I mean, with the different level of sensors and the connectivity which is there, which is in fact taking care of environment protection. Then your time to revenue is really good. Technician productivity is increasing now because you are not putting that particular technician just for a laborer's work, but you are using that same technician for a better functionality, downstream efficiency, and then revenue guarantee. The other space which has come up now is connected retail, where we are talking about like monitoring when a consumer comes into a particular area, right? Let's take a mall, right? So that mall can be connected in such a way that uh, uh, with your Wi-Fi or as well as with your 2G, 3G, right? We can track that you have entered into this particular mall, and then we can track internally with within that particular mall as to in which area you are spending more time, right? Now with that analytics, primarily the focus of that particular mall management is that, okay, these guys, so many people are spending their time here. So how do we monetize this? So maybe that you can put some kind of an advertisement there. Maybe that can give them more visibility, right? So that is one thing. Second thing is like when you enter into the mall, it also gives you different levels of coupons, and it gives you different advertisements on your smartphone, which says that this is the kind of offer which you have. The location where you are standing from there, maybe 10 steps and right, that particular shop is there. Why don't you see this particular offer? So these are the various things which are happening, and really we are working very closely with different vendors and application vendors also, right, in this industry, where primarily this part of it is being taken care of. So the objective is to get that wow experience to that consumer, and the objective of the mall operator is to ensure that there is a lot of focus, there is a lot of footprint coming into that particular mall. So, guys, that's what I had today. If you have any questions, I can go through that.
So Dwarika, I think your fantastic, applications overview in a snapshot. Just one query I had.
Yeah.
So applications, which today what is happening is in the IoT, everything goes to a centralized cloud where possibly the application would be hosted, and all the decision making or the processing is taking place, and then the output is then sent back to the location where it is required.
Right.
So, do we see any requirements wherein now we are moving more to a distributed, application architecture, and we have use cases where we see that now, if IoT has to perform, uh, just the traditional centralized cloud model might not work, and you might need to push the computing capabilities to the edge as well.
Yeah, so you're right, Jamshed. So yeah, basically there is a lot of work which is happening in this space as well. So we are talking about even having mobile edge computing kind of a technology, right, where the objective is that to bring all this computing functionality, to bring in that computing functionality right up to the edge, so that the dependency on the cloud goes off. So for an example, Jamshed, so what's happening is, right, initially it was like even though we were calling it as a connected experience, right? But most of the time it used to be always an offline processing, correct? Because now the infrastructure has been put in by one particular guy, right? And his objective is that he will collect off the information and then he will share that information across to the other guy. But now what we're talking about is connecting end to end, which means that right from the sensor, which is collecting my information, to the processing based on the business rule, to the end user application, which is, let's say the end user here would be either the mall vendor or might be the retailer who want to really have a visibility. So the objective is to connect it in a real time end to end so that they are not dependent on any of the central processing team for an offline stuff. So does it answer your question, Jamshed?
Yes, Dwarika, it does answer. Basically, I just wanted to see that what is the threshold or the tripping point between where today edge compute is possibly preferred, but still most of the work can happen through the centralized cloud. Vis-a-vis saying that there are certain applications which can only function on edge compute and they cannot function on centralized cloud platforms.
Yeah, so see, primarily if you look at the application, so maybe that this might not be a right example where we are talking about putting the mobile edge computing at the mall just for doing this particular activity, because this cannot be just done with the mobile edge computing located at the edge of that particular or the particular location, because this has to be, there is a lot of processing dependency, there is a lot of backend server communication dependency which is there. So this has to anyway be there at central location. But let's say that I have to play an advertisement, right? And that I have to play it within that particular mall area, right? Now that particular CDN content may be deployed at my mall itself, okay? But that can be remotely managed so that whatever video I want to play, like I want to play an advertisement for a particular consumer which has got into that particular mall, and just for an illustration, right? So you can play that content locally there so that the response would be much more faster compared to fetching the content from the central location and then based on because of jitter or because of some other different user experience, he may choose to do or maybe he may stop in between and he may move on, right? So it totally depends how you want to particularly address that particular use case. It can be designed according to that.
Understood. Understood. Thank you.
No problem.
Dwarka, I have one question.
Yeah,
Since I am in Delhi, so
yeah,
I was more interested in this you term the smart parking.
correct.
Because parking is always a major issue in New Delhi. So I don't
Absolutely.
know if if you have analyze on that. Is anybody like a distributor in India who can supply end-to-end a smart parking solution to societies?
Okay, so right now, if you look at major one, I know about Honeywell, but if you can connect offline, I can get you some vendors name that I can note it down. So what I can do is, because as I said, I work for Cisco, so we work with different vendors. So I can try to get you some contact who can help us at least for a home segment or residential segment. That I can get you.
Sure, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah.
One question from my side, Dwarika. What
Yes, sir.
about the primary source of connectivity for these devices? I mean, will they be using mobile network, cellular network, or will there be a separate network layer? What do you foresee?
So Chintan, to answer your question, right? So if you look at IoT as a complete solution, it has got different stuff, right? And each equipment would require a different level of connectivity. So when it comes to sensors, right, small sensors which are just picking up some kind of a beacon, then maybe that LoRa is one of the technology which is one which can be used for it. But let's say that if you have a dependency uh, where you have to do a high-speed connectivity, then that could be either done through, let's say, 4G as a technology, or it could be Wi-Fi as well. So in India, right now, there has been a lot of focus on Wi-Fi from different part of it, whether you take the government sector, whether you take the private sector. When I say talking about private sector, primarily around the mobile operators. So this is going to provide. This is also going to be provide one different channel of communication in case of IoT is concerned, wherever there is a high bandwidth requirement required. So to answer a question, there is no single technology that would be used for IoT. There will be different connectivity technology which will be used for different application. It totally depends on the application.
Got it. Got it. Thank you so much. And I would wish if you can take us through the last mile connectivity options in some other session. And
Yeah, I can do that offline. I can do that in the next session, not a problem.
yeah, sure, definitely. Any questions from Jamshed, Ajay, CK, Sandeep?
No, I'm good.
Nothing from my side. I think it's very good presentation.
Said also.
Yeah.
No question from my side.
Okay. CK, are you around? Hello.
Yeah, no question from my side, but it was an excellent presentation, eye opener of what IoT is for changing our lives.
Yeah. Thank you,
Fantastic.
everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So maybe CK, you can convey vote of thanks from the forum on behalf of forum.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would definitely like to thank Mr. Prasad for this wonderful presentation. He has taken a lot of effort in delivering this presentation, and I was surprised when I learned that he had to catch a flight at 10 o'clock in 5 minutes. He has the trouble. So thank you very much, Mr. Prasad, and thanks everybody else, Ajay, Chintan, Jamshed, and Sandeep.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And have a nice weekend, guys.
Have a nice weekend. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.